Welcome to the Brand Doctor Podcast, strategies that help entrepreneurs build reputable and profitable brands. Here's your host, Henry Kaminski Jr.
How to transition from your 9-to-5 job into entrepreneurship. The million-dollar question it is. So my next guest today is a recognized authority on entrepreneurship, leadership development, and the host of the business podcast, Smashing the Plateau. I love that name, by the way. He inspires and guides highly skilled professionals who yearn to impact the world with their knowledge and creativity by becoming successful entrepreneurs. Without further ado, I want to introduce David Schriner-Cahn to the show. How are you, my friend?
I'm great, Henry. How you doing today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you for taking 30 minutes, 40 minutes out of your day today to share with my audience and share your expertise. For those folks who don't know who David is, I want to give them 3-4 minute, bio, some context around, who you are and why do you do this?
So I went from 9 to 5 to becoming an entrepreneur. I was an employee for over 25 years. And like many people, I really wanted to do my own thing, but didn't have the courage to do it until the timing was chosen by somebody else. But the fact that I really wanted to do it, I said, okay, now is my chance. I'm going to take advantage of this opportunity, and I am going to figure out how to make it work. And that was in 2006. So it's now 2019. It's 13 years ago. I couldn't be happier being my own boss. Entrepreneurship is way harder than being an employee. And I was, by the way, I was in leadership and management roles for most of my career as an employee, which those are demanding jobs, but still it's nothing like being your own boss. Being your own boss is hard. No question about it.
Yeah. A lot of people think it's the glory days once you hit, oh, I'm going to be my own boss now. I can get up whenever I want and I can do whatever I want. And it's a fallacy. It's fake. It's false. It's not true. I was in corporate for 8 years right out of college myself. And I remember getting out and doing my own thing right around the same time you did. So I'm coming up on my 13th year in business as well. So congratulations to you as well, because we all know most businesses fail in 36 months or sooner.
A lot sooner. I think it was like 90% don't make it to 12 months.
Wow. So,
there's some statistic. And then there's another statistic that I heard that the number of businesses that raise capital is infinitesimal. Right, that like there's a lot of buzz in the business media about venture-backed businesses. That venture capital is like a tiny fraction of capital that's raised. Period. Like most businesses are not worthy of raising venture money, and the reality is most businesses can't raise money. Period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when you talk about businesses and entrepreneurs needing to bootstrap what they're doing, you got to think about yourself as needing to bootstrap what you're doing, because that's the reality. That's most businesses.
Yeah. Until you get to a certain point, and then you can obviously reinvest. I mean, I'm a firm believer that the best investment you can make is back into yourself and back into your business. Now, what I want to get into today is, I like what you said before, where your fate was sort of determined by someone else, and that didn't sit well with you, if I heard you correctly. You always wanted to do your thing, but you didn't pull the trigger, and then finally, same thing kind of happened to me. I was getting squeezed out of my position at the hospital. They knew what I was up to. I knew what they were up to. It was like, who's gonna Who's going to
pull the trigger first?
Who's going to pull the trigger first? And one thing that I didn't realize is the hospital won't fire you because they don't pay unemployment. So you have to leave, or they just make your life absolutely miserable, right? Which they were doing. Half of the day I was filing papers for some director. And I was like, I didn't get my master's degree. I had my master's degree when I was young. I didn't get my master's degree to file this person's papers for half the day. So eventually I said, I'm out. And it was the scariest probably one of the scariest decisions I ever made in my life, and the best decision I ever made in my life. So I would love to hear from you. Like, what was your fear?
My fear was that I wasn't going to be good enough. So self-doubt, that I wasn't going to be able to deliver high quality results to clients, that I wasn't going to be able to develop business, that people weren't going to hire me and my company, whatever we were selling. There were things I didn't know. And frankly, the longer I was in business, the more I realized I didn't know about running a business, which is kind of ironic considering the fact that most of my career, I was running other people's organizations. That's what I did for a living. And I'll tell you, Henry, it's very different running an organization that has dozens or hundreds of employees than starting your own single person business.
Now, people would say that, how so? How could that be?
So my employment was in two categories. Initially, I have my degree is in engineering. I worked in corporate as an engineer for a few years till the first time I got fired, which is a whole other story. And that was like a total surprise. And it had nothing to do with performance. The company I worked for didn't have enough business. And I was like, a month after a great review and a big raise, I got fired. But anyway, so that was like the first piece of my career. Second piece was I worked in the nonprofit sector. You were also in a hospital, which was probably nonprofit. Mm-hmm. I was in smaller community-based organizations. And I found it personally a lot more rewarding to be part of something where I saw the direct result. I saw the direct impact that the kind of work that we did at. But even though the organizations weren't that huge, I didn't wear every single hat. So like, even though I knew a lot about fundraising wasn't my primary role. My primary role for most of the time was finance, operations, facilities, events. So I still wore a lot of hats, but I didn't wear every hat. So I wasn't the person who was primarily responsible for marketing and selling what the organizations delivered. I had more of a secondary role. And when you're the business owner, one of your biggest roles is marketing and selling. So I had to learn a lot about marketing. I had to learn about selling. I knew nothing about business networking. About a year after I started my business, a friend of mine who had started her own business about a year before me, also somebody who was in the not-for-profit sector for like 30 years, started her own solopreneur business. She said, David, I'm part of this group that I think you might find useful. Why don't you come meet with us for breakfast? Come check it out. And I'm like, okay, I'll do it. So it was a BNI chapter, and I walked in the room. I'd never been to anything like it before, and I'm looking around. I see there were like 30 people there who were all at 7:00 in the morning. We're all gung ho to help each other develop business, and I thought this could be useful. So I joined, and then pretty soon I was on the leadership team, and I started getting business from people in the room, and they started referring business, and I started picking up a lot of small business clients, which wasn't my main focus. My initial focus was I came out of the not-for-profit sector. It's like, I'll be a not-for-profit management consultant. That's what I know. And I was doing that, but then all of a sudden I started getting other kinds of business that I wasn't even asking for. And I really got into relationship building, networking, business development, marketing. I learned a lot about marketing. And I saw what all these small business owners were struggling with, which was overwhelm, tremendous challenges with time management. I was surprised. I had a great finance background, even though I'm not an accountant, but I know enough accounting to make me dangerous around financial reports, and can't tell you how many clients I've worked with don't look at their numbers. It's like, how do you know whether you're making money or not? I had one client who, after we met the first few times, didn't want to share this information initially, but once there was some trust developed, handed me, literally, we met in the parking lot of a diner, and she handed me 2 big boxes filled with unopened payroll reports and unopened bank statements, several years worth. And I'm like, how do you know how your business is doing? And the answer was, well, I don't. And the reality was, this person they were making money. They were making much more money than they realized. But so small business owners have a lot of challenges, huge challenges. And my business developed as a result of all of these activities that I was doing in ways that I hadn't really anticipated before that.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, you're spot on when you say, it's a lot more difficult now to run a business than it's to run an organization, because you're wearing all the hats. And that's where I struggled myself. First 8 years, I muscled my way to mid 6 figures every year, but it was 20-hour days. I barely saw my girlfriend, my wife now, but my wife. And I didn't even have time to spend my money because I kept working. And then what happened was Fiverr came out, Hurricane Sandy came through, wiped 2 of my biggest clients out. And I was struggling hard because I was like, well, I got out of the nightlife scene because I'm older now and I don't go out as much. And that 90% of my business was in that vertical. So I was really stuck. And I did not know how to get out of that mess because I didn't change my lifestyle. I just kept it moving, and slowly but surely, it's like a trickle to the red. And
right.
And then what happens is like, now what? Right. So got some help, found a mentor, worked my way out, got myself back in a hole, worked my way out. But you're right. You got to know your numbers, because if you don't, you have nothing to measure, and what doesn't get measured doesn't get made. It's just, at the end of the day, that's how it goes. And like, I can promise you that I have QuickBooks Online open up 24/7 on my desktop, because I'm constantly, I'm not overly obsessed with the numbers, but I know what I'm doing per day, per week, per month. And I know what I need to make, in order to do it. And keep this business flowing. And so it's very, very important. So, let's talk about the transition. Okay. So I would love for you to share your experience, if you don't mind. You said before, I wasn't looking back. I was just going to go forward. Right. I have the same philosophy. It wasn't if this works, it's when this works. Right. Where did that come from? And was that developed, or was that something that you had naturally?
It's just something I wanted to do. I wanted more control over my life. It was that simple. And I can also tell you about the transition in addition to my own story. Look, I've made it work for the last 13 years. Some years have been really good. Some years not so good. That's how it works in a business. And like you, my business has been up and down. And when it's down, I look for where I can get help, because there are things that I know that I don't know. It's like when you're creating a plan, your plan is based on what you know and what you know that you don't know. Because when you realize you don't know something, you go and you try to figure it out. The biggest problems come about when you don't know that you don't know something. It's like my first year in business, I didn't know that I didn't know about networking and relationship building until I happened to stumble into it. When I did, it was a game changer. Had I started networking from day one, I would have been on the road even faster, but I just didn't know that I didn't know it. So in addition to my own story, I've also, as you mentioned, I host a podcast. I've interviewed about 500 people on my podcast. Many of them have made the leap from corporate to entrepreneurship. And what I have heard over and over and over again, I've felt this myself, is there's tremendous fear at the beginning. I'm not going to get it right. Maybe I'm not good enough. All the people who are close to me and love me dearly tell me that I'm crazy. When I interviewed John Lee Dumas on my show, who's a very famous podcaster, one of the things he said was when he started his podcast, Entrepreneur on Fire, his close family and friends thought he was nuts and tried to talk him out of it. People close to you will try to talk you out of it. They're the real fears. Am I going to actually be able to pay my bills? Even though there were downsides to working for somebody else, at least I was getting a paycheck. It was consistent revenue every single month. I knew exactly what was going to come in. So the financial planning is way easier when you get a paycheck until it stops. So fear is huge. Second thing that I've heard from so many people is, especially when the trigger that causes them to become entrepreneurs is somebody else is making the decision. So they walk into the office thinking they're going to their desk, and instead of going to the desk like they've done for years, security escorts them to the door. What do I call myself day one when I don't go into the office? What's my identity? What do I put on my LinkedIn profile? I haven't figured out yet what I'm going to sell. I don't know who my target audience is. I know I have to be public about it so that I can market, but what do I say? So loss of identity, there's our ego is so tied up to our work. When you meet somebody at a party, what's the first thing they say to you? Oh, hey, Henry, what do you do? And it's like, if you don't know how to answer that and answer that in a way that gets somebody interested and excited, then not only have you blown an opportunity, but you're probably going to feel pretty crappy. So identity is a big thing. So that initial part, the emotional baggage that's associated with the loss of your job is huge. And the reality is, and I've asked a lot of people this question, the reality is for most people, it takes a good bit of time till you make up the income you had when you had your job, and some people never make it up. So I would say most people that I've asked this question, it's generally 12 to 24 months before they are in some kind of financial stability. And there are a lot of people, particularly those that have had really high income jobs that they hated, people who are making, let's say, mid six figures and up. Very often they don't replicate that with their business. Yet, when they design their business in the right way and they think about what's important in their lifestyle, they're able to live very comfortably. They're able to meet all of their personal financial needs and more, and have a business that they're proud of, doing work that they love doing, serving the kind of people that they really want to serve, people who value their help, and they're just so much happier.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because success is in the eye of the beholder. I'm a firm believer of that. I just read a great book by Mike Francis. It's called "I'll Make You an Offer You Can't Refuse." He's an ex-mob guy. I've been talking about this guy for a couple of episodes now, but he talked about this towards the end of the book. And he talked about, like, this guy had planes and helicopters and 4 houses all over the country. And the guy was the top earner. He made Al Capone look like a bum. And he was clearing like 6-7 million a week in his gasoline scam. And I'll tell you, he said, if I could do it all over again, I'd be happy with 1 house, 2 cars, right? My family, spending time with them, and, just doing what he had. A lot of legitimate business too that he enjoyed. He had a couple car dealerships. He was all over the place, but the guy made a decent living. The guy was an earner, right? And so I want to share this, because this is coming to mind right now. I think the one thing that David and I share is this, and I don't know David that well. I'm going to be quite frank with all of you. But one of the things that I believe we have is this drive and passion to refuse to give up. Just don't take no for an answer, and to just continue to make it happen. And so how do you do that when you're in a funk, business is down, you feel like everything you touch turns to shit? How do you get out of that? And my answer is this: belief. It starts with belief. I share this story a lot, but I had a really high profile client last year, awesome client to this day. She spent over $90,000 with me in just a couple of months. And I showed my father, I was so happy and proud of that, right? I sent my father a picture of the check, the deposit check. It was the biggest check I ever got in my life. And I said, Dad, why do you think I'm getting these types of checks? And he said, experience. You're more experienced, son. And so I said, it's true. I learned a lot by failing miserably over the past 13 years. But now we're finally making things happen. And I went to my mentor and I asked him the same question. I said, my father thinks it's experience. And he says, yeah, that's part of it. He says, but I don't think it's that at all, quite frankly. I think you now believe you deserve it. And so for all you folks out there that are watching or listening to this, I want you to think about this. Do you truly believe that you deserve to be an entrepreneur? And I'm just going to give it to you straight. And if the answer is no, get your butt on LinkedIn and start looking for another position. Do not waste your time. But if in your heart of hearts, and if you truly, truly believe in your bones, that you were put on this earth to make a difference in someone else's life, and you were going to be able to scale your expertise and allow that to come to fruition, then do whatever needs to be done to make that happen. And don't feel bad about it. Don't feel sorry for yourself. Don't do whatever you need to do. As long as you don't step on other people's toes while you do it. And I just want to put that out there because I think entrepreneurship has been glorified as this cool thing and this fancy thing. I'm going to be my own boss. I'm an entrepreneur. Meanwhile, you live at home and you're still paying, your parents are still paying your car bills. And you could be 40 years old and it's still going down, right? I just want to put the reality out there. This is hard. David said it, and I back him up a 10,000%. It's much more easy for me to punch in and punch out every day. And you know what? It's just not for me. And I know it. And I've been put on this earth to do bigger things. And I'm not putting people down that have 9-to-5s. I'm not. I'm talking for myself. So I don't want you to feel that way at all. But I just want people to get that realism and that reality through this message, because if they don't, I don't want to see you bankrupt. I don't want to see you, robbing Peter to pay Paul. I don't want to see you in jail because now you're out there scamming. I don't. So you got to get real with yourself. And I think that's going to lead us into the doc's prescription. And so I want to start by saying, really understand the different dynamics of entrepreneurship. And if there's any book that you would read, I highly recommend the ebook, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, if you want to start there and start to get a real understanding of what true entrepreneurship is. Start to subscribe to blogs and videos. Another great YouTube channel is Valuetainment. My buddy Patrick Bet David, over 1 million subscribers. Really great content when it comes to entrepreneurship. Head over there and start to digest some of his content and get a feel for it. And whether you got fired or whether you're in the process of, transitioning on your own, really get a good understanding of what's involved before you take the leap. Okay. I was pushed off the ledge, and luckily God blessed me with design, and I built the parachute on the way down. But man, did I hit a few rocks on the way down. And so just understand that it's not going to be easy, but it's going to be well worth it. The next thing I want to point out is business is a team sport. And like David, I did something similar. I got involved in different organizations and groups. And what you put into these organizations and groups is what you get out. I'm part of the Meadowlands Chamber of Commerce. It's one of the best chamber of commerce, I think, in the country. And it is extremely innovative. It's engaging. They're always on point. They're always staying ahead of trend, and they're always involved with the community and so on and so forth. But I remember when I committed to that organization, I went to the CEO and I said, I just don't want to be another member. How do we get involved? How do I get involved? And I said, Jim, I'm going to lean on you to keep me involved. So what happens 2 months later? I become the host of their podcast and help them produce it. I get on a board, subcommittee called the Emerging Leaders Committee. And I work with other folks that are similar in age that are helping other, folks that are in their late 20s or early 30s emerge into their leadership roles, whether in corporate or in entrepreneurship. So I got involved, and man, is that such a rewarding feeling to be part of. So a couple things I want you to do there. And then last but not least, know what you're getting yourself into and be humble about it. Like David said, he didn't know what he didn't know. And it wasn't until he realized what he was bad at that he went and he tried to improve upon it. So, there's different philosophies out there, focus on what you're best at and delegate the rest. I'm a firm believer of that. But ignorance will kill you too. What you don't know will kill you as well. And so be conscious of that and know a little bit about everything. Like he said, to be dangerous about it. You don't have to be a pro at it, but know what you're getting yourself into and really map that out. Come up with a game plan. I remember when my brother-in-laws were contemplating college 4 years ago. Can't believe they're graduating already. It like happened in a blink of an eye. But one of my brother-in-laws said, I don't know if I want to go. And I remember what my father-in-law said. You have 2 weeks to develop your business plan before you make that decision. Or you can't make that decision, he said, unless I have a business plan in 2 weeks. And I commend that because there was no way that, and then eventually he went and he loved it. And now it's like 4 years was 4 minutes. That's the key takeaways I want you guys to get out of this episode. And I'm so happy that Dave was here today to bring these out. Now, the question from the community today is this. This one is a little broad, but we're gonna tackle it. All right, how do I generate more leads for my business? Okay, well, here's my answer to this, and I'm going to hand it over to Dave. Why do you deserve more leads? Why do you deserve more leads? What are you doing to deserve more leads? And that's all I'm going to say. David, how would you tackle that question?
I'll actually pick up on that, Henry, because, you do have to answer that question. Why do I deserve more leads? Second thing goes back to some of the things you touched on. You mentioned mentors. We talked about networking. We didn't really talk about masterminds so much, but it's really important to be in some kind of mastermind relationship with a small group of trusted people where you can help one another. You also mentioned entrepreneurship as a team sport. The reality is people do business with people they like, they trust, they know, they like, they trust, and also who they believe care about them. And if you look at where your best business has come from, let's say over the last 12 months, chances are it has come from a small number of relationships. So if you want to generate more leads, what you need to do is, and this is where the metrics come in, look at your business, identify what is the best business, both in terms of what you love doing most, what you're most competent at doing, and what pays you the best for the amount of time you put in. So it's most profitable. And when you see those 3 data points telling you a story about who those best customers or clients are, look at the lead source for those clients, and particularly if there are individuals behind those lead sources, because some businesses that they'll get like organic search, but a lot of business comes from individual referrals. So look at who those referral sources are, and then make sure that you have a systematic structure in place so that you continue to build those relationships and you continue to nurture those relationships. So if you have 2 or 3 people who are feeding you most of your business, how often are you having lunch or breakfast or a drink or dinner with those people? How often are you hanging out socially with those people? And ask yourself, what am I doing for them? Because business relationships are a two-way street. You gotta have a giving mindset. You have to be prepared to give first before you get anything from anybody else. So work on those relationships and be metric driven and be systematic about it and be real and honest in your relationship building. It's not about money. It's about you really care about these people and you want to help them and they will help you.
And the money's just a byproduct. I'm a firm believer of that. David, I love the way you put that. It was buttoned up beautifully. So for those folks that are listening and watching that want to learn more about what you do and how you help and serve your clients, where can we find you?
You can go to smashingtheplateau.com, which is our website, hosts. We have close to 500 podcast episodes up there. So a lot of great content that we've been developing over the last 5 years. If you want to get in touch with me, there is a button on there where you can schedule 30 minutes to speak with me. I'd be happy to have a conversation with you if you have questions about how you can move forward in your own business, your own life. And there's a form on there where you can just contact me. Also, Henry, you and I first connected on LinkedIn. I spent a lot of time on LinkedIn. Look me up. I'd be happy to connect on LinkedIn. It's an easy way to exchange some quick communication. I'd be happy to answer any questions any of you have about how you can smash your own plateau.
Beautiful. I love that name, by the way. I wasn't kidding before. I absolutely love it. So there you have it, guys. Thank you again, David, for coming on the show. What a pleasure.
Thank you, Henry. Thanks so much.
Real quick before we wrap up, guys, a couple things. One is hit that subscribe button right now, whether you're on YouTube or iTunes. If you are enjoying this content and you find it valuable, if you're on iTunes and you want to write a quick little written review for me, I really appreciate it and thank you in advance for it. Last but not least, guys, if you haven't checked out the Brand Doctors Growth Club monthly coaching, open enrollment is still available. I only have a couple more spots left. If you're looking for some accountability, if you're looking to find out some of those things that you're unaware of, and help you get that clarity, help you get that focus, get around some like-minded entrepreneurs that want to help you genuinely grow as an entrepreneur, as a person. This is a great little intimate group that I've put together to help you build a profitable and reputable brand for yourself. So go check that out. I'll leave it in the show notes and the descriptions. And if you want to keep this conversation going, if you have questions and comments, YouTube, please drop it down below, and you know how responsive I am. I will get back to you as soon as possible and get you the resources you need to help you get what you need. So have an amazing day, guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
You've been listening to the Brand Doctor Podcast with Henry Kaminski Jr. To get your appointment with the doctor, visit Brand Audit at www.uniquedesigns.net.